Well, one thing social media platforms can't afford to do is stand still. They have to innovate often, and that's exactly what LinkedIn is doing right now. For more, our social media expert, Dr. Karen Sutherland, who is up on the plasma. There we go. How are you today? Good to see you.
How are you?
Yeah, I'm going
Yeah,
well. Hey,
good.
maybe on the just on the Facebook one briefly. I know we're talking about LinkedIn mainly, but what have you seen there? A massive breach. There are phone numbers involved. How concerning is that?
I think it's very concerning. It's not surprising though, is it? And I think Facebook's response saying that it's an old breach, it doesn't make it any better, does
No,
it? So
no.
the security may have stepped up a bit since then, but it still happened, and people are very scared and very wary of putting their stuff online now. Hopefully a bit more. But Facebook just keeps being like it keeps having these issues. So I don't know if we're ever going to really fully trust that platform.
Yeah, it's not a good time, that's for sure. We know what's happened over the past 6 months or so. And yeah, as you say, to say it's an old breach, it's like, I mean, that doesn't really make anyone feel any better, I don't think, right? It's a massive breach.
It's a breach. A breach is a breach. People feel vulnerable, and they're worried. Like, who has their data? I mean, this sort of stuff is sold online, and it ends up in cases of fraud and all sorts of things. People taking credit cards out in their names, you name it. So, yeah, just to say it's an old one doesn't make it any better.
Absolutely not. Let's look at LinkedIn for a moment. You've got a couple of new additions to take a look at. They seem to be making some pretty cool changes at the moment.
Yeah, look, I mean, LinkedIn is constantly innovating. Sometimes well, sometimes not so well. But they're adding a new feature, which will be really a great thing. Facebook already has that, but it will mean you'll be able to add, I guess, allow people to see a lot more about your personal brand, what you do in your profession. It will add a whole other dimension, I think, to the way that you communicate about yourself on that platform.
So they're looking to bring video in more and more. So tell us a bit more about this. I mean, it's clearly where we're all heading in a way, the ability to have a bit more video online. But what are they looking at exactly?
Well, it's in the cover image area. So when you go to
Yep.
someone's profile, that sort of you can see there with Heather Austin, the yellow part behind her cover image there will her profile image will be, you could actually add a video there, which Facebook's allowed for a while, but it's a new thing for LinkedIn. At the moment, though, like actually posting video on LinkedIn hasn't been performing so well of late. So it'll be interesting to see how well these cover videos perform and what they'll actually do in sort of improving your personal brand on LinkedIn.
And there's also audio rooms that are available as well. Tell us a bit more about this.
Well, because I mean, we've been speaking week to week about Clubhouse, and now it seems so many social media platforms are adding that as an additional feature. So, not Clubhouse themselves, but just these spaces where people can interact via audio. And so, LinkedIn is also doing that. So, they're adding that feature. It's not available yet, but it soon will be. So, it means it'll really open things up in terms of networking and live networking on the channel, which will be quite interesting to see how that works in a professional context.
And just to finish, you mentioned earlier that they are always innovating, LinkedIn that is, but sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. Is there anything that you have seen that hasn't quite worked in a way?
Look, I think things like, I mean, I think stories is still taking a little while to evolve
Yeah,
on LinkedIn.
yeah.
People are working out how best to use it. Some are doing it really well, but I think because it was sort of not, I guess, natural for LinkedIn, it wasn't native to LinkedIn. They sort of added it in line with other platforms. I think it's still finding its feet, but it's not to say it's a huge failure. I just think maybe it's just people haven't worked out how to use it properly yet.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. When I'm on LinkedIn, you can see the stories and it just doesn't feel like it quite connects like obviously Instagram has and even Facebook to a lesser extent. Hey, thank you so much for your time once again. We'll talk really soon, okay?
Thanks. See you.